Welcome back to the Funding Blueprint, your premier destination for all things startup and innovation. I'm your host, Abraham, and today we have a very special guest joining us, Ian Bergman, partner at Alchemist Accelerator and head of Alchemist Accelerator. Ian is a seasoned professional with a passion for driving innovation at the intersection of emerging tech startups and established organizations. With a rich background that includes leadership roles at Microsoft and co-founding a successful web journalism startup, Ian brings a wealth of experience and insight to the table. Ian also hosts the Alchemist X Innovators Inside podcast, exploring the stories, experiences, and lessons that shape innovation worldwide. Today, we're excited to delve into Ian's journey, his perspectives on startup ecosystems, and the impactful work being done at Alchemist Accelerator. So without further ado, let's welcome Ian to the show.
Avraham, thank you. It's great to be here.
The startup world has been seen as a dramatic shift in recent years. The once dominant role of accelerators as the go-to launchpad for early-stage ventures is facing new challenges. Alternative funding options like crowdfunding and a wider pool of angel investors have emerged, while venture capital itself has become more accessible. Additionally, the sheer number of accelerators has grown significantly, raising concerns about the quality of mentorship and network effects they offer. This begs the question, with all this change, are accelerators still essential for early-stage startups, or have they become less relevant in the face of a more diverse funding landscape?
Yeah, what a great question. I wish there was a one-size-fits-all answer to that complex ecosystem question. There's not, but I think it is very clear. Yes, I believe accelerators are highly relevant, right? But like anything, you need to know, you need to know what you're going to expect as a founder out of an accelerator, right? You talked, Abraham, about, access to investment and funding, right? And there is more access to investment and funding in some ways than there has ever been in the past. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy, but it's out there. There's more access to something else that you didn't mention than there's ever been in the past, and that's information, right? Anybody can go onto YouTube, onto the web, can go to, Founder School, can find tons of incredible lectures, insights from people that have done it before, more information on how to run your business, right? So in that world, what is the role of an accelerator for an early stage startup? I think a high quality accelerator is still an unbelievable crucible where you combine, not just access to information, but two-way dialogue and access to expertise in a time-bound fashion so that you can develop conviction as a founder. Hey, am I on the right track? So for founders looking for that, yes, they're still very important, but you are right. There's more available in the world today than there ever has been, and that means that founders have to do more work to determine, why am I going to be going to an accelerator program? What do I expect out of it?
100%. No, well said. I mean, accelerators have traditionally been seen as stepping stones to secure funding for early stage startups, but recently, the landscape is evolving, of course. With more funding options available, a lot of founders might question if fundraising should be the sole focus when entering an accelerator program. So while fundraising is important, it should be the primary goal for founders entering, an accelerator program. Should that really be the primary goal?
It's such a good question. Look, so let's think about the metrics we hold ourselves accountable to, and it's really interesting. They are fundraising centric. Like, one of our metrics that we're most proud of is what percentage of our alumni go on to raise a venture seed round, right? And when we look at things like what impacts our NPS score, right? Founder sentiment and recommendation, it's often things like fundraising. So look, that matters. But when I think about what the primary goal should be for a founder looking at accelerator programs, it's about what the accelerator program is going to bring you that enables fundraising success, right? Because fundraising is downstream from developing the body of evidence that you are solving a problem in the world that people care about, and translating that body of evidence into a story that gets other people conviction in what you're doing, right? And so when you're looking at what you expect out of an accelerator program, no, it's not that you can go raise your $2 million, $3 million, $4 million seed round. It's that this is going to get you the conviction and the traction that you need to go take your business wherever it needs to go, whether that's raising capital or something else. So there's my answer. I think that's been actually pretty consistent over a large number of years. And I think today's fundraising environment, what we're seeing is that actually it's more important to spend time on the prerequisites to fundraising than it's ever been.
I agree. I think setting a strong foundation prior to just jumping into fundraising right away is paramount. Just in general, there's so many different types of problems that haven't been solved, unfortunately, and there's so many misconceptions due to not necessarily having a strong, a foundation being built. And accelerators can most definitely do that.
Well, they can. And look, let's be honest. One of these mistakes that founders make all the time is jumping into fundraising too early. And I get it. Like, you got to feed yourself for one, right? And you have ambition and scale and dreams, but there is groundwork to be done before a successful fundraise. And for many founders, a high quality accelerator program can be part of that.
For sure. And I could see why many founders use that as like the first option that they turn to, is because they get so afraid, bootstrapping just in general. It's like so many different types of costs. How will I have the time and the money to sustain that? So, I can kind of see the reasoning behind that.
And set some time constraints, to your point, right? There's a lot of expense and a lot of opportunity costs. And you do want to make sure that you're not only getting the support that you need, but that you're putting time bounds around it so that you can pass the stage gate, so you can know this is worth it, or you can pivot and do something else with your life, because that is important too. And that's actually one of the underrated responsibilities of an accelerator, is sometimes helping people realize it's not working so that they can go do the next thing rather than having their current venture suck the life out of them.
Very true. And I mean, to your point, like you kind of saying picking the right accelerator is the key. So how can founders really go about that? Like they face a really crucial decision, which program best aligns with their specific needs and their vision. So what are some key factors founders should consider when selecting an accelerator program?
There's some basics, I think, that anybody's going to kind of come across as like, oh, what's their portfolio? What's their recognition? Do I know people that have gone through them? And I think that stuff's really important. Are they thematically or sectorally aligned with what I do? Do they have the expertise, right? If I'm an agri-tech startup, do they have an agri-tech focus? And that stuff is really important. But for me, for those times when we are lucky enough to have choice, whether it's in fundraising, right? Whether it's in joining an accelerator program, or whether anything else in our life, when we're lucky enough to have that choice, that set of options, then one of the things that we need to do, and that any founder should do, is also just run some diligence, right? Like, you're going to be pre-filtering, and you're going to be filtering down to a set of accelerators based on who they are they relevant to me, and all that. And then, just like if you're taking a check from an angel, or just like if you're taking a check from a Series B or C or D growth stage fund, do some diligence. Call some founders. Don't ask the accelerator. Just, their portfolios are public. Founders help founders. Call some founders that have gone through them. Ask them. Ask them what it was like, and then does that resonate with you as a founder and your needs? That's all I can really recommend, because you're going to get the best sense of a cultural fit by engaging with the accelerator in advance. And you can do that online through the stuff that they publish. You can do that by showing up at any online or offline community events. And you can do that by talking to the people that have done the program before. Founders always want to help founders. I don't know what door opens more quickly than, the door where you enter and you're like, hey, I'm a founder. I just need help with one quick thing. Can you help me, to another founder? That door is open as often as people can make it.
100%. And I mean, you mentioned earlier that the equity is really a precious commodity for any founder. In the past, accelerators often took a certain standard percentage of their ownership in exchange for their support. But recently, there's many founders that are understandably hesitant about giving up a significant chunk of their company. So this raises a really important question. With founders' concerns about equity dilution, how can accelerators address these anxieties and establish fair equity arrangements that benefit both parties?
There's a lot going on there. I will say, this is one of those topics. There's 2 or 3 questions that come up all the time. And, I just feel like people overthink, and I'm like, and this is one of them. But here's the thing. 100% of nothing is nothing. People overthink equity. And let's be really clear. Equity matters. Control of your company matters. Dilution for exit matters. There's all kinds of things. But honestly, I think people overthink it. If you are kind of like debating and niggling over a half point or a point or even 2 points of equity, that actually makes zero difference to your long-term success, right? You are there's a much higher variable or more impactful variable in terms of what funding stage you exit. You exit for a smaller amount after a seed stage, you're going to do better as a founder 99% of the time than exiting at a much higher valuation at a Series A stage, and so on and so forth. So I guess all I'd say about this is it does have to be fair. Standard terms often help with perceived fairness, right? Which is why many accelerators have gone to standard terms. But also for me, this is a more binary decision. Does the value that an accelerator bring, is it going to help me be more likely to have a successful exit or not? And if the answer is yes, the amount of equity matters a lot less. That might seem like a self-serving answer, but it is the truth from my perspective.
I agree entirely. I think that's on the top of the list. That should be on the top of the list of the priorities. When evaluating which accelerator they want to call home.
Yeah, I've talked to so many founders, and not just, by the way, not just at accelerator, pre-seed stage, like at later stages, that get so wrapped around to the axle on ownership percentages that the opportunity cost to the amount of time they're spending on that is actually pretty high. And it's kind of crazy when what they really should be thinking about is, look, am I set up to maintain the sort of control and authority that I need to set direction for my company? And am I getting access to the resources that are most likely to get me where I want to go? That's all that matters.
That's very true. The world of accelerators is often dominated by programs designed for consumer-facing businesses, more like B2C. But however, Alchemist seems that it stands out with its focus on enterprise-oriented startups. So this begs the question: given the distinct challenges faced by B2B ventures, how does Alchemist actually specifically tailor their program to address the needs of enterprise-focused startups?
Yeah, totally. We are, one of, if not the leading kind of B2B and enterprise-focused accelerator program in the world. And if you think back to kind of some of the founding story, a lot of what we designed for our program and our ecosystem was actually in response to the fact that 10, 11, 12 years ago, so many of the programs had such a B2C focus, right? So I think there's a few things. Look, any accelerator and any kind of network or program is largely dependent on the body of expertise that are captive within its network, right? So certainly, we have exited Fortune 500 CEOs, people that have built, and exited $100 million, $1 billion plus companies and all of that stuff. So a lot of our network are people with deep fintech or HR tech or energy sector or whatever experience. And that really matters. But we've also done some really kind of practical and pragmatic things with our program to help enterprise-focused founders. One, we run a 6-month program. There's a bunch of reasons for that, but there's one really big one. It turns out that to get traction in an enterprise sales motion takes longer. And it takes a long time versus a B2C sales motion. And so we have to allow some time to build the traction that founders need to go off and fundraise, right? We also do some really interesting things in how we bring on coaches and how we build kind of a board of coaches and advisors that in some ways are very representative of enterprises in the sector that founders are operating in. So there's some unique things there. So, there's a bunch that we do, but I think in summary, the network, very enterprise focused, people who have been operators and executives in enterprises who have built and exited B2B firms. The length and structure of the program is adapted to the sales cycles and with a focus on what it takes to drive sales and traction in an enterprise sales motion. And then finally, some of the cool kind of unique things that we do in terms of building customer advisory boards.
That's awesome. So it's really more of like a tailored approach. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, in many ways, there are aspects of an accelerator that are sort of a simulation of the world that we're all going to launch out into, right? It's a real simulation because you're actually developing revenue and POCs and traction, but we try and emulate, and prepare founders for what it's going to mean to actually sell into enterprises?
So say I'm a founder, right, and I want to apply to Alchemist Accelerator. Like, how do I make my profile stand out? How do I make my application stand out? What are some things that you guys are looking for?
Well, so one, we publish some of this on our website, so go to alchemistaccelerator.com/apply and just do it. But yeah, how do you stand out? Look, we're looking for deeply technical founding teams who are distinctive in their problem space, right? So we're looking for people who are builders, right? Who are able to have a really tight loop between feedback they're hearing from their customer and their ability to update and adapt their solution, right? We are looking for teams, a diverse set of experiences that collectively is greater than the sum of its parts, right? And we're looking for people who have a right to succeed in the problem space. Like, there's many ways to derive that right. You may have lived it, right? You may have spun out from a large company and now you're building a solution to the thing that frustrated you the most. You may be the world's foremost expert in some piece of technology or some bit of science that is really applicable. It doesn't matter. Like, what is your right? So explain that right and explain why you are the people to solve it. And the more you can do, like with any pitch, in the voice of customers, in the voice of people you've talked to, in the voice of data about prototypes or MVPs that you've built or launched into the market, the better. Does that answer your question, Abraham?
Yeah, no, sound advice.
I feel like you got me onto a soapbox.
But that was very, very insightful. I think there are audience, any audience members that are interested in, applying to Alchemist Accelerator now kind of have a gist, not just from a website perspective, but now an insider who actually is a part of Alchemist Accelerator and runs their day-to-day, kind of shedding some light on that is important.
And you should definitely apply because we'd love to hear from you.
Well, with that really wraps up another enlightening episode of the Funding Blueprint. A heartfelt thank you to our guest, Ian Bergman, for sharing his valuable insights and wisdom with us today. We hope you found today's discussion on the role of accelerators in the startup landscape both informative and thought-provoking. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more engaging conversations with industry leaders like Ian. For our listeners interested in learning more about Ian and Alchemist Accelerator, we'll have the links to their website and social media in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time.